In the year 1868, Missouri was a land of rolling hills and dense woods, where rivers flowed like silver ribbons under the sun. However, beneath its serene beauty lay an undercurrent of fear and mistrust. The people of these small towns were often trapped between what they had always believed and the new ideas creeping in from the world beyond. Scientific discoveries were beginning to challenge old superstitions, yet many clung tightly to their traditional beliefs. This tension created an environment where suspicion thrived, especially towards those who stepped outside societal norms. Eliza Mercer was one such figure. Known for her knowledge of herbs and healing, she had dedicated her life to helping others. Eliza lived on the edge of town, where wildflowers bloomed in abundance. The townsfolk admired her skills, but also regarded her with a wary eye. Many viewed her as a healer. Others whispered that her abilities were unnatural, a sign that she consorted with dark forces. It was during one warm spring day that fear took hold again in this tight-knit community. A beloved child fell gravely ill with a fever that seemed resistant to any treatment. Desperate parents turned to Eliza, hoping she could bring back the laughter to their home. With gentle hands and a heart full of compassion, Eliza gathered herbs from her garden, boiling them into a mixture she was sure would help the child. She believed in the power of nature, a belief that had been passed down through generations. As she administered her concoction, hope flickered in the hearts of the worried parents. The child's condition began to improve, and soon he was sitting up in bed, smiling brightly at his mother. This moment should have been a celebration of life. Instead, it drew unwanted attention. The town preacher, a stern man with a booming voice, observed from afar. His heart thrummed not with gratitude but with growing unease. To him, Eliza's actions stretched the boundaries of what was acceptable. Curing with herbs felt dangerously close to witchcraft, an accusation he would not hesitate to level against her. As whispers turned into shouts, gatherings in town square became charged with tension. Mobs formed easily among these people, fearful of anything they couldn't understand or explain away with reason. They rallied around the preacher's conviction that Eliza must be punished for dabbling in devil work. Fueled by ignorance and fear, the townspeople decided that an example must be made. That fateful evening brought darkness cloaked in uncertainty. Eliza found herself dragged from her home, confronted by faces once familiar, but now twisted by rage and suspicion. They tied her to a sturdy tree at the edge of the woods, a place chosen for its isolation and foreboding atmosphere. The townspeople believed nature itself would serve as judge and jury. Alone and exposed to the elements, they expected Eliza would perish by dawn. Through it all, Eliza remained resolute. While bound by ropes and surrounded by hostile voices, her spirit did not waver. She gazed up at the stars twinkling above, the same stars under which she had once enjoyed peaceful nights filled with dreams and hopes for tomorrow. However, nature had surprises hidden within its folds as well. The night passed slowly. Clouds drifted across the sky like shadows whispering secrets to one another. With each passing hour, fear gripped the hearts of those who waited for dawn, a fear that perhaps they had gone too far this time. They could feel it tightening around them as if closing in like a noose. Then came the morning mist, a thick blanket enveloping everything in gauzy white softness. As dawn broke gently over Missouri's horizon, something remarkable happened. The mist began to part like curtains on an unexpected show. From within this ethereal veil emerged 6 mounted warriors riding silently into town. Each silhouette cut sharply against the soft light of daybreak, powerful figures on horseback who commanded attention without uttering a single word. Among them was Wasake, a Lakota man whose past intertwined with Eliza's own history. Years before, when he fought for survival against fever that drained him of strength until she offered him hope through her herbal remedies. Their bond transcended words. It lingered deep within their shared memories. As the townspeople stood frozen in disbelief at this unexpected arrival, the warrior's fierce eyes burning like fire, Wasake dismounted gracefully from his horse. Without hesitation or spoken command, he approached Eliza and began untying her bonds while his comrades formed a protective circle around them. In that moment, a moment fraught with tension, a transformation occurred not just for Eliza, but also for those who watched in stunned silence. No longer was she an accused witch destined for doom. Instead, she stood alongside warriors who recognized her as one of their own, amidst whispers of uncertainty echoing through the crowd behind them. With newfound courage swelling within her heart, and freedom rekindled at last, Eliza mounted one of the horses beside Wasake as they prepared to ride away from judgmental eyes forever transformed by their encounter on that fateful day. Together, they rode toward horizons where acceptance awaited, leaving behind old fears alongside prejudices born out of misunderstanding, as dawn led them into an unfathomable future, filled with promise and adventure beyond what either had ever dreamed possible before now. Eliza Mercer was a beacon of kindness in the small town that nestled between the rolling hills and whispering woods of Missouri. With her long chestnut hair cascading down her back like the flowing streams nearby, she embodied a spirit that seemed to dance with nature itself. The townspeople often spoke in hushed tones about her exceptional knowledge of herbs and their healing properties, treating her almost as a mythic figure, both revered and feared. From a young age, Eliza had felt an unbreakable bond with nature. She would wander the vibrant meadows, her fingers brushing against dew-kissed petals and soft leaves, gathering the plants that would become her remedies. With each blossom she picked, she learned to understand their secrets, discovering how they could ease pain or soothe fevers. Eliza's heart swelled with joy whenever she used nature's gifts to bring comfort to others, whether it was helping a neighbor with a sprained ankle or concocting a tea to calm worries before bedtime. Her small cottage at the edge of town was filled with jars brimming with colorful herbs and dried flowers that filled the air with earthy scents. It was here that she would mix potions and salves with gentle care, pouring her love into every drop, her hope being that her efforts would guide each person toward healing. She would often say that nature was not just a source of medicine. It was also an ally in life's most challenging moments. Every child in town knew Eliza as a friend who listened to their dreams and fears as readily as she attended to their injuries. She could often be found beneath the shade of an old oak tree, sharing stories filled with magic and wonder that made even the dullest days sparkle. Eliza's laughter rang out like wind chimes on a breezy afternoon, brightening everyone's heart as it danced through the air. But it wasn't just the children who felt drawn to her warmth. Adults found solace in her presence, too. She cared deeply for each member of the community, never hesitating to lend an ear or a helping hand when they were faced with struggles. Whether it meant delivering meals to families in need or tending to gardens so they would flourish, Eliza understood that kindness could mend not only bodies but also spirits. Yet, despite her undeniable goodness, shadows loomed over Eliza's light. The very qualities that made her adored by many also sparked suspicion among others who clung fiercely to old beliefs. There were whispers behind closed doors that Eliza's talents were unnatural, that perhaps she had made pacts with dark forces to wield such power over life and death. These rumors circulated like wildfire among those gripped by fear of what they did not understand. The preacher, a man steeped in traditions and rigid convictions, watched over his flock with watchful eyes. He saw Eliza's talents not as gifts, but as threats to his authority over his congregation's beliefs. To him, healing through nature felt dangerously close to witchcraft. Any sign of independence from established norms ignited his fears further. Fueled by ignorance and misunderstanding, he seized upon the opportunity presented by Eliza's acts of compassion to rally support for his cause against her. As spring arrived that year, the town buzzed more than usual. People gathered excitedly in townsfolk meetings, often using Eliza's name as a topic of discussion. While some recognized how much the community relied on her skills, her ability not only to help heal but also inspire, others grew increasingly uneasy about such independence from conventional beliefs. Eliza sensed shifts in the air around her. Despite receiving praise from many thankful families for restoring their loved one's health, she felt ominous weight pressing down upon her heart during quiet moments alone in her garden. Nevertheless, she forged ahead determinedly, unwilling to be cowed by growing suspicions. Then came one fateful day when a child fell ill, a fever so fierce that none could break it, despite traditional methods being employed endlessly by desperate mothers seeking answers within customary practice alone. When urged once again by anxious parents for aid after conventional treatments failed them dismally, Eliza stepped forth without hesitation. To her, this was simply what one did when faced with another's suffering. She mixed herbs together tenderly, nature's bounty woven into something transformative, and prayed for success as she administered them under watchful eyes filled with hope mingled warily, alongside skepticism lingering at the borderlines ahead. Yet little did anyone know how rapidly everything would change beyond comprehension, as suspicion turned into action fueled by fear moments later. The warm spring afternoon brought a sense of anticipation to the town, but it was not long before that gentle tranquility turned into a nightmare for one family. Young Samuel, the beloved son of the Johnsons, fell ill with a fever that gripped his small body tightly. He was known for his bright laughter and curious spirit, often seen chasing butterflies in the meadows or climbing trees with his friends. But that day, his playful nature was replaced by a heavy stillness as the fever raged on. Samuel's parents, Lucy and Thomas, were frantic. As night descended, they sat by their son's side, their worry etched deep into their faces. They tried everything: cool cloths for his forehead, warm soup to coax him back to strength, but nothing seemed to alleviate his suffering. They whispered prayers into the flickering candlelight, pleading for relief and guidance, desperation rising with each moment that passed without improvement. As rumors of Samuel's illness spread through the town like wildfire, whispers quickly turned into cries for help. They remembered Eliza Mercer, the healer known for her remarkable remedies derived from nature's bounty. People began to gather at the Johnsons' door, filled with concern and hope, while Lucy recalled Eliza's caring touch during past ailments. In the dim light of their cottage, Lucy made the decision to reach out to Eliza. It felt like a desperate choice given the town's growing unease surrounding her talent for healing. Yet there was little time left. Samuel's condition was worsening by the hour. Hurrying through the winding paths toward Eliza's home felt both like an act of faith and a surrender to fear. Eliza was tending to her herb garden when she heard gentle knocks at her door, followed by Lucy's anxious voice calling out. She quickly put aside her work and opened it wide, concern flooding her heart as she saw the distress in Lucy's eyes. "Please, Eliza," Lucy implored. "It's Samuel. He's so unwell. He needs your help." Without hesitation, Eliza grabbed her basket, a woven vessel filled with vials and pouches that held countless remedies crafted over years of learning. "Take me to him," she replied firmly. As they hurried back to the Johnsons' cottage, Eliza worked quickly yet carefully as she assessed Samuel's condition. She could feel the heat radiating from him as he lay still, eyes closed beneath lashes matted with sweat. Panic rose within her. She had treated many ailments before, but never had someone so young appeared so fragile. "Lucy, gather me some willow bark and peppermint from my basket," Eliza instructed briskly while balancing herself on the edge of calmness. The mere act of gathering ingredients grounded her thoughts amid chaotic fears swarming around them. With every item they collected, dried roots, fragrant leaves, Eliza poured herself into her task. She mixed potions, grounding herbs together into a healing slurry that she believed would ease Samuel's fever and help coax him back to health. Each motion came instinctively. Every potion was a culmination of thousands of moments spent in connection with nature's teachings. "Drink this, dear heart," she softly urged as she offered Samuel a spoonful of the herbal mixture once complete. Its thick consistency glimmered just slightly in candlelight, while releasing an aroma that floated warmly through the air, a scent promising hope. For a brief moment after wetting Samuel's lips with her concoction, silence fell heavy upon them all. Barriers formed from uncertainty teetered on a knife's edge, waiting anxiously for a response from the boy who lay there so still. And then it happened. Slowly at first, but undeniably real. Samuel's eyelids fluttered open. They were filled with confusion, followed swiftly by recognition when he focused upon Eliza's kind face hovering above him. As seconds ticked by like precious sands drifting through an hourglass, his body began to rise against the hold of fever, giving way to shudders at first, before settling back into restful breaths that flowed easier now than before. Relief coursed through everyone present, the chance of keeping hope alight cradled gently yet firmly within each of their hearts. However, gratitude soon became overwhelmed by another truth lurking close behind. The whispers that had already begun echoing out from those who watched changes unfold uneasily around them visibly lingered close nearby. Determined to silence all doubt against what they believed should have no part in salvation efforts succeeding parallel with superstition rising above it. Yet Eliza remained centered in purpose amidst conflicting shadows, looming further over this transformative moment that still threatened uncertainty, where deeper-rooted skepticism sprouted concerning anyone willing enough, or foolish enough, to tread upon brighter paths, ushering new possibilities along tormented territories, borne out limitations imagined deeply inside previous minds, set rigidly hard against notions not taken, kindly orbiting nature beneath twinkling skies, illuminating starry realms beyond understanding available right here firmly at home, near rowing waves still breaking softly across silken shores beyond them all. As the sun dipped below the horizon after Samuel's miraculous recovery, the town of Missouri began to buzz with a mix of relief and apprehension. Eliza Mercer had saved the child with her herbal remedies, but what should have been a moment of gratitude soon transformed into an opportunity for others to voice their fear. The shadows cast long as night fell, and in the flickering candlelight of his church, the preacher sat in deep thought, his mind racing with dread. The preacher, a man ruled by strict beliefs and an unwavering faith, had always looked upon Eliza's talents with suspicion. He had listened as whispers circulated among families about her abilities, how she could heal the sick and ease pain through potions made from wild plants and flowers. To him, such powers felt unnatural, akin to dark magic or witchcraft. As he brooded that evening, an unsettling idea took root in his mind. Perhaps this was his chance to reaffirm his authority over the townsfolk. The very next day, with determination etched on his face and fire in his eyes, he called a meeting in the town square. The news spread quickly, people whispered anxiously as they gathered to see what their preacher had to say. He stood before them upon a makeshift platform, his voice booming as he addressed the crowd that had come together under the weight of uncertainty. "Brothers and sisters," he declared, "we find ourselves under siege by forces we cannot see. Eliza Mercer has healed young Samuel using herbs, but do not be deceived. Such meddling is nothing short of devil work." His words hung in the air like smoke from a smoldering flame, igniting fear in those who heard him speak. The townspeople shifted anxiously as the preacher painted vivid images of witches lurking in the darkness, preying on the innocent. He spoke of how Eliza's actions defied God's will, how her healing methods threatened their community and jeopardized their souls. One by one, arguments arose against her. Fears of punishment for seeking her remedies clawed at people's hearts until whispers turned into echoes demanding retribution. Among them stood Lucy Johnson, Samuel's mother, who felt torn between gratitude for Eliza's kindness and fear for her safety now that the town had turned against her. Eliza had been nothing but a light to her family when they faced despair. Yet here was proof that kindness could swiftly transform into condemnation when darkness crept into hearts hardened by historical beliefs. As tension mounted and rumors spread rapidly through homes adorned with shadows cast from flickering candles, Eliza remained unaware of the storm brewing just before she stepped onto dangerous terrain. Her path illuminated not with hope, but rather grim foreboding waiting eagerly beneath each step. That night, while she tended to her garden as usual, looking after nature's gifts brought solace to her soul. Suddenly, she heard footsteps approaching. A rustle amid leaves signaling something ominous loomed close behind her. As she turned around with concern etched across her brow, it was too late. The stark faces of townsfolk glared at her with a mix of accusation and fury. Soon after, she was surrounded. Their voices rose above whispers. Fear morphed into rage as they demanded answers for healing that they could not understand. The very same people whom she had helped found themselves caught between gratitude mingled deeply against conditioned distrust, fostered by years devoted solely to familiar paths paved within rigid frameworks governing right and wrong. "Your potions are foul," shouted one man from within the gathering. "You play with forces you do not comprehend." The preacher watched triumphantly from nearby, the embodiment of authority, that any soul questioning norms must be brought back into submission, lest chaos ensue amongst those willing enough or foolish enough to reach beyond established confines where true safety prevailed. Panic surged through Eliza as accusations flew relentlessly around her, while emotions swirled wildly deeper still, like rapid currents threatening to drown them all in uncertainty. Witch, sorceress, devil's handmaiden, they cascaded down like stones from lips once friendly turned cold. A community ready to sever ties with kindness, based solely upon childish fears, giving rise malicious thoughts birthed from superstition becoming unquestionably real instead. Though she stood steadfastly against allegations hurled toward her without compassion or understanding, offered on behalf of anyone holding such twisted philosophies, guiding decisions made at twilight hours, taking tolls upon many lives lived out within bounds, drawn clearly by historical contexts circling away rapidly, hardening ever tighter against new perspectives emerging bright amid approaching dawn. Eliza breathed deeply before addressing them with calm determination, shining brightly even through doubts reflected back toward herself, while darkened horizons continued looming ever closer, behind unyielding lines boldly held firm against reason, maintained earliest at once without thought. Granted due respect, returned back where it belonged so dearly. The evening air grew thick with tension as the townspeople gathered in the square, their faces illuminated by the flickering torches that cast dancing shadows across the cobblestones. Fueled by fear and suspicion, whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. The preacher, emboldened by their anxiety, painted a vivid picture of Eliza Mercer as a threat to their very souls, a witch whose hands were stained with the devil's work. One by one, townsfolk began to shout their agreement, echoing his sentiments until they reached a fever pitch. "She should be punished," cried one man, his voice cracking with emotion. "We cannot let her curse our children anymore." "Witch! Witch!" Others chimed in rhythmically, their voices rising to form a cacophony of outrage and fear. Each accusation seemed to stoke the flames of fury within the mob. What had once been individual thoughts became a collective chant that surged through them like a powerful river, sweeping away reason and compassion. As they stood shoulder to shoulder beneath the darkening sky, they fed off each other's energy, fueled by an ancient kind of fear that thrived when uncertainty gripped tightly at hearts desperate for safety. The moral fabric that had once held their community together now frayed and tore as they sought someone to blame for Samuel's illness, someone who could embody all their worst fears. Eliza's name was repeated again and again among them, transforming from a sound representing hope into one that bore contempt. The preacher's words had transformed the very idea of healing into something sinister. No longer was she seen as a gentle healer, but rather as an enemy lurking in their midst. With each passing moment, courage slipped away from those who might have defended her. Kindness appeared small against the growing tide of anger pouring forth from the crowd. Mothers placed protective hands over their children's ears, while fathers clenched fists tightly by their sides, caught up in this whirlwind of emotion where logic was lost amid chaos. "How can we trust her?" shouted another voice amidst the uproar. "If she wields such powers, then surely she makes deals with forces beyond our understanding." This notion struck deep into many hearts. It was far easier to believe in someone embodying evil than ponder over complexities lying behind real-life problems they faced every day. Fueled further by darker thoughts creeping into minds accustomed only to light, nurturing within familiar confines established long before Eliza ever set foot upon these soil-stained pathways winding throughout town. It wasn't long before an outrageous plan began coalescing within this gathering of fearful souls, whose unity bred irrationality. With renewed determination, sparked behind fiery eyes trained solely toward scapegoating Eliza. Each word uttered turned deadly sharp, while resolutions formed quickly on tongues, loosened where once only kindness flowed freely, without thought for consequences, nearing lightly upon trembling edges, now bold enough attempt something truly terrible. The decision came swift. Tonight there would be no discussion about mercy or understanding, no inquiry extending toward compassion felt deeply, for all lives tangled amidst complexities hidden just beneath surfaces. Everyone took for granted until this very hour arrived, instead bringing fiery judgments reigning supreme above those cries seeking justice, even if wrought thick with tyranny. A moody silence replaced shouts made earlier, as groups split apart, forming factions eager for action, their destination clear. Her cottage at the edge of town awaited impatiently, while its occupant labored unaware, merely tending garden spaces thriving nearby, where nature sang soothing melodies, promising peace amidst encroaching storm clouds, swirling close overhead like unavoidable fates readying themselves. Take whatever form may come next. Crucible draw near intimately entwined. Underneath heavy skies, shadowing events, yet unfolding toward predestined whims, lurking darkly around forgotten corners, looming ever closer with every hurried breath. Eliza remained blissfully ignorant about what awaited her just beyond twilight, lingering above stillness encased around her home, now still and silent save soft humming winds rustling gently through blossoms, blooming brightly active, even still, despite dangers approaching close behind. Yet every heartbeat pulsing through each gathered individual present echoed loudly, reverberating inside chambers, built strong centuries past, once meant bring harmony where now discord reigned supreme, marked clearly against horizon, growing near more tangible than breaths taken forth, signaling onward toward inevitable conclusions, turning swiftly dark, undersides plummeting deeper into night, filled not with dreams realized but fears, rooted firmly deep down, buried hard beneath asphalt pathways traveled wide open beneath eternal stars, sprawling fiercely bright overhead, illuminating nowhere else found, but right here within sight. The air was thick with tension as the townspeople led Eliza Mercer to the edge of the woods, the sun sinking low in the sky and casting long shadows that seemed to stretch like fingers towards her. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, their voices filled with a mixture of fear and certainty, as they approached a gnarled old tree that stood resolute against the advancing twilight. Eliza remained calm, despite the weight of despair pressing down on her shoulders. She had treated many in this town with kindness and care, yet now found herself at the mercy of those she had once healed. As they reached the tree, she took a deep breath, steadying herself against the storm brewing around her. Even in this dire moment, she felt a connection to nature, as if the very earth beneath her feet was rooting for her. With rough hands, the townsfolk began binding her wrists with coarse rope, their actions driven by a mob mentality that drowned out any lingering compassion they might have felt. Eliza's heart raced, but she met their eyes one by one, refusing to look away. Instead of fear or anger, she resolved to show them strength in this moment. She would not be broken by their accusations or their blind hatred. "Please," she spoke softly yet firmly, her voice carrying over the hushed whispers of the crowd. "If you believe I am truly guilty of witchcraft, then know this. I only sought to help when Samuel was ill. There is no malice in my heart, only healing." Her words hung in the air like an olive branch extended toward a community lost in turmoil. Yet those who listened were not swayed by reason. They were entangled in their fears and fueled by doubt sown deeper by their preacher's proclamations. They finished binding her to the tree, the ropes digging into her skin but failing to pierce her spirit. The gnarled trunk became both a prison and a witness to her quiet bravery. With each loop of rope tightened around her wrists, she felt an unsettling sense of clarity wash over her. The tree stood tall and unyielding beside her, the silent guardian of all who had come before and all who would come after. She closed her eyes for a brief moment and drew strength from its ancient roots that burrowed deep into the earth. As darkness enveloped the landscape and stars began twinkling like distant lanterns high above, Eliza opened her eyes again and gazed out at the assembled crowd whose faces were now shrouded in shadow. She saw mothers clutching their children tightly while others exchanged fearful glances. They were not just an angry mob. They were human beings grappling with uncertainty, but also potential allies lost within chaos. "Do you truly believe I am evil?" Eliza asked boldly, tilting her chin upward defiantly. "Have I ever harmed anyone? You know me, know my heart." Her tone rang true, resonating from deep within where compassion lived despite being threatened so harshly. Yet instead of a response filled with understanding or remorse from those gathered before her, fueling any flicker of hope left behind, their chants sharpened into pointed accusations, filled with venomous bitterness echoing back toward what once had been vibrant connections forged across community lines, now fraying rapidly, unraveling under pressure, mounting unbearably close beneath tumultuous skies, looming overhead, threatening further storms ahead, spiraling downward upon them all instead. In this moment, bound against rough bark, feeling tethered, yet somehow still free, within heart's essence, rebounded off ages past, gripping upon stories told only under starry nights, sheltering secrets whispered soft amidst shadows, dancing delightfully among branches, swaying gently near where tomorrow beckoned softly onward. With quiet determination burning inside resilient spirit, unwilling yield against forces attempting silence forevermore, Eliza felt something shift within herself amid chaos raging beyond ropes tied securely fast around limbs still present, holding tight, gripping firmly without breaking against unfolding fates drawing nigher. The night deepened further still, while townsfolk tightened bonds once thought unbreakable, now held precariously together beneath looming threats needed redemption, desperately seeking balance restored again, not merely through punishment meted out, but rather connection renewed, reaffirming what truly mattered most held tightly within shared humanity, residing across boundaries defined far too rigidly, drawn between souls, entwined, seeking light, returning forth into darkened corners, waiting patiently, fading gently back home. As the night deepened, a heavy mist rolled in, blanketing the town of Missouri in a thick shroud of mystery. The gnarled tree where Eliza was bound loomed like a sentinel against the encroaching darkness, but as dawn approached, the first light of day began to creep over the horizon, casting a soft glow through the swirling fog. The townspeople, still gathered in a restless throng, felt a palpable sense of anticipation mixed with dread. They could sense that something was about to change dramatically. The mist hung low and heavy, swirling around the tree and concealing the world beyond. Eliza's heart quickened as she felt a stirring in the air, her senses heightened despite her precarious situation. The whispers and murmurs of the crowd faded into an eerie silence, replaced by the gentle rustle of leaves as if nature itself held its breath. With each passing minute, the tension thickened, an unspoken acknowledgement that whatever would happen next was beyond their control. As light began to pierce through the fog, revealing the outlines of the woods behind the tree, an electric atmosphere enveloped the scene. A sudden hush fell over the townsfolk, their eyes wide as they turned toward the dense mist that now seemed to part like curtains drawn back for a grand reveal. Then it happened. The silhouette of 6 mounted warriors emerged from the mist, their dark figures sharp against the soft morning light. Each horse moved with purpose and grace, hooves striking the ground with a rhythm that echoed through the stillness. The sight was both awe-inspiring and intimidating. These were not mere men but warriors draped in strength and determination. Among them was Wasake, the Lakota man who had once owed his life to Eliza's healing touch. His presence brought a rush of recognition and unexpected warmth to her heart, even in her dire predicament. She remembered his fevered brow and how she had fought tirelessly to save him. Now he rode closer, his eyes blazing with purpose like embers igniting into flames. The townspeople stood frozen, caught between fear and wonder as they beheld this unexpected spectacle. They whispered among themselves, uncertainty clouding their judgment. Some felt instinctive awe at the warrior's arrival, while others were gripped by old superstitions that told tales of spirits and saviors hidden within the woods. The lead warrior raised his arm high, urging his companions onward with a commanding presence that silenced any lingering doubts in his wake. As they approached the clearing where Eliza was tied, the air crackled with anticipation. Would they be her salvation or harbingers of deeper chaos? Eliza's heart swelled with hope, tempered by lingering fear. She watched as Wasake drew nearer on his powerful steed, his expression fierce yet resolute. There was no doubt in her mind that these warriors had come for her. She could feel it in her bones. "Stay strong!" Wasake's voice rang out clear above the whispers of the crowd as he leaped from his horse with practiced agility. He strode toward her, eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that felt both reassuring and fierce. As he approached, Eliza braced herself against the rough bark of the tree, finding strength in its ancient roots as she prepared for what would come next. The townsfolk shifted uneasily, their resolve wavering under the weight of this unexpected turn of events. The warriors formed a protective circle around Eliza and Wasake as he reached for the ropes binding her wrists. The crowd watched in stunned silence, their faces painted with confusion and uncertainty. This moment felt like a pivotal point in time, one where destinies could shift forever. With swift hands, Wasake untied her bonds without uttering a single word. There was no need for explanations or apologies. As she felt the ropes fall away and her freedom return, Eliza's spirit surged with gratitude and resilience. She stood tall beside him, no longer just a victim condemned by fear, but a force ready to reclaim her place in the world. The sun began to rise fully above the horizon, banishing the last remnants of night as light flooded over them all. A new day dawning not only for Eliza, but for those witnessing this moment as well. In that instant, she realized that perhaps this was not just an act of salvation for herself, but also a chance for the townspeople to confront their fears and prejudices. As she mounted one of the warriors' horses beside Wasake, she glanced back at the assembled crowd. They remained silent witnesses to this unfolding drama, a community at a crossroads teetering between fear and understanding, darkness and light. And with that first bright ray of sunlight breaking through the misty veil hanging over Missouri, Eliza rode away, not as a prisoner, but as one who would forge a new path ahead, one filled with promise and acceptance, waiting just beyond those woods once feared, but now transformed by hope. As the mist began to clear and the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, the figure of Wasake loomed larger in Eliza's view. He rode with a grace that suggested years of training and dedication to his people, his presence commanding in the midst of uncertainty. His dark hair flowed freely behind him, catching the light as he approached, and his eyes glimmered with a fierce intensity reminiscent of smoldering embers that were about to burst into flame. Wasake was not merely a warrior, he was a testament to the strength of memory and connection that transcended time and cultural divides. Years ago, when he was just a young boy suffering from a deadly fever in his own village, Eliza had ventured beyond her familiar surroundings to lend her knowledge. Remembering him now brought warmth to her spirit, even as she faced the harsh reality of her current situation. She had treated him with care and compassion, using her herbal remedies to save his life when all hope seemed lost. The memory flooded back vividly. Eliza sitting beside his thin frame, whispering words of encouragement while she prepared a potion from local herbs. She remembered how she had felt his small hand grasp hers tightly as he battled through pain, hope shining in his eyes as she poured her energy into healing him. In those moments, they had forged an unbreakable bond across cultural lines. She, a white woman from a small town, and he, a Lakota boy from a distant land. That bond had shaped their destinies in ways neither could have predicted. As Wasake dismounted with purposeful grace, he locked eyes with Eliza. His gaze contained both familiarity and recognition, an understanding that transcended words yet spoke volumes in their shared history. In that moment of eye contact, everything else around them faded into insignificance. The chaos of the townspeople and the weight of fear evaporated for Eliza. All she saw was Wasake, the boy she had saved transformed into a man who now sought to rescue her. "Stay strong," He urged her firmly yet softly enough that only she could hear. His voice cut through the thick air like a beacon of light flickering against impending darkness. I am here. Though Eliza felt fear threading its way through her heart at the scenes unfolding before her, a community ready to condemn her without mercy, Wasake's presence grounded her once again. Together, they represented resilience against adversity. Together, they could challenge the misconceptions born from darkness. As Wasake stepped closer, the other warriors formed an unyielding circle around them, dignified protectors wearing expressions that mirrored both resolve and urgency. They were here for Eliza, but also for something greater than just one woman's fate. They were here to challenge the very narrative woven by fear, to reclaim their duty as guardians not only of their own people, but also allies who recognized those who had acted selflessly. Eliza felt the bonds tying her wrists slowly loosen as Wasake worked with swift hands. The ropes fell away, but it wasn't just physical freedom she craved, it was the emotional release from being painted as a monster rather than a healer. The townsfolk watched in stunned silence, their expressions shifting from hostility to confusion, mingled with awe as they witnessed this transformative act unfold before them. With each passing second, Eliza sensed hope blossoming where despair had once taken root. She looked up at Wasake. His face showed no signs of doubt or hesitation. Instead, it radiated confidence and belief in what they could achieve together moving forward. The sun now rose higher above them both. Instead of casting long shadows over despair, its light illuminated paths awaiting uncharted possibilities ahead. New beginnings waiting just beyond the horizon where acceptance might bloom anew, even within hearts tangled tight amidst fear, seeking understanding once more. As elation surged through her veins like wildfire, igniting purposes long suppressed within realms dominated solely by rigid beliefs refusing change. The whispers that had once condemned her began fading like echoes lost amid laughter, ringing sweetly out across fields vibrant with colors running wild alive underneath ever-widening skies stretching endlessly overhead. And it was then that Eliza realized this moment would not simply mark the end of her suffering, but become part of something larger, a movement calling forth connections forged through kindness. Bridging divides between them all brought forth not by confrontation but rather through understanding, discovering new resilience growing silently beneath, roots deeply intertwined, finding freedom together, lingering close while gathering strength onward toward shared glories, brightening futures still unknown, waiting patiently, under watchful moons shining brightly far beyond feelable borders drawn wide apart. As the sun fully broke through the last remnants of mist, casting warm light onto the scene, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The 6 mounted warriors, clad in leather and feathers that adorned their proud forms, moved with a silent grace that commanded attention. Each warrior radiated strength and unity, their presence both powerful and calming amid the charged silence of the townspeople. Wasake led the charge, his eyes locked onto Eliza as he approached her with purpose. The memory of their past flickered between them, a bond formed through shared experiences, resilience, and healing. The townsfolk watched in stunned disbelief, their earlier chance of accusation fading into an eerie quiet as they witnessed this unexpected turn of events unfold before them. Without uttering a single word, Wasake and his fellow warriors encircled Eliza, forming a protective barrier that contrasted sharply with the fear that had gripped the town just moments before. The warriors moved in perfect synchrony, each undertaking their role with practiced ease and unwavering determination. There was no need for grand speeches or bravado. Their unity spoke volumes louder than any words could convey. as Wasake reached out to untie Eliza's bindings. His fingers worked deftly against the coarse ropes that had held her captive. The ropes fell away like the weight of unjust accusations being lifted from her shoulders. In this moment of silence, time seemed to stretch infinitely, allowing Eliza to absorb the gravity of her rescue while feeling an overwhelming tide of gratitude wash over her. The spectators stood frozen, their expressions shifting from shock to confusion and awe as they witnessed this striking image unfold. Here was a woman who had been condemned by those she had once healed, now standing tall amid warriors who recognized her for who she truly was, a healer and compassionate spirit, rather than through the lens of fear cultivated by ignorance. Eliza's heart raced as she felt the cool air brush against her newly freed wrists. She glanced at Wasake, who met her gaze with unwavering intensity. His presence alone seemed to ignite a fire within her. She felt both safe and emboldened as he stood beside her, ready to face whatever came next together. In stark contrast to the fierce energy of the warriors was the palpable stillness emanating from the townspeople. The crowd had been engaged in a frenzy of fear just moments before. Now they bore witness to a moment so profound it challenged everything they thought they knew about Eliza Mercer. Their hearts wrestled with conflicting emotions, curiosity battling against years of ingrained beliefs, as they watched this silent rescue unfold in front of them. As Wasake finished loosening the final bindings around Eliza's wrists, he stepped back slightly but continued to stand close by her side. The connection between them was evident. It transcended cultural boundaries and spoke to shared humanity, a bond forged not just by saving lives, but by understanding each other's fears and embracing one another's strengths. The sunlight danced upon Eliza's face as she took a moment to breathe deeply, filling her lungs with renewed energy. The fog that had enveloped her heart began dissipating under the warmth of acceptance and compassion radiating from Wasake and his fellow warriors. Eliza turned back toward the crowd, taking in their shocked faces illuminated by the dawn's light. This was not just a moment for herself, but one that held potential for change within their community as well. She felt empowered, not merely by escape, but by the realization that they could redefine their narrative together if only they allowed room for understanding rather than fear. As murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, questions forming on lips still trembling from disbelief, the realization dawned on them all. These warriors were not here to sow chaos, but were allies standing firm against injustice, rooted deep within traditions often left unchallenged. With renewed strength coursing through her veins like sunlight breaking free from behind clouds, Eliza mounted one of the horses beside Wasake, and for a brief moment looked back at those who had once condemned her. "Will you choose understanding over fear?" She spoke softly, yet clearly enough for those assembled to hear, her voice ringing like bells across fields open wide beneath skies, stretching endlessly overhead, ripe with promise. And as she rode away, no longer defined simply by accusations thrown hastily without thought, Eliza felt not just freedom reclaiming its place alongside her, but also hope igniting anew within hearts readying themselves, finally dare step forth into brighter tomorrows lingering close nearby, promising acceptance, waiting patiently across pathways leading onward toward futures filled with love instead. As Eliza mounted the horse beside Wasake, a sense of transformation enveloped her. She looked back one last time at the townspeople gathered near the tree, their faces still a mixture of disbelief and confusion. Those who had once condemned her now bore witness not just to her rescue, but also to her reclamation of identity. She was no longer the accused witch, but a healer meant to bridge worlds. The rhythm of hooves pounding against the soft earth resonated in harmony with her racing heart. The warriors rode with unwavering strength, a formidable force that protected not just Eliza, but also signaled a profound shift in the fragile balance of power within the community. As they rode away from the scene of her past torment, each stride felt like a step toward healing, not only for herself, but for those back in town as well. Wasake's presence was grounding. His steady demeanor reassured her as they traversed the landscape. Eliza remembered the warmth in his eyes from their shared past, a time when hope had flickered in the depths of despair. Now, that hope ignited brighter than ever as she regained control over her narrative. "Together, we will make it right," Wasake said softly as he guided the horse alongside hers. His words offered strength against doubts that still whispered at the edges of her mind. The tall grasses waved welcomingly as they wove through open fields, bathed in morning sunlight that chased away remnants of darkness lingering behind. With every breath she took, Eliza felt layers of fear begin to peel away. Memories flashed through her mind. The laughter of children she had healed, mothers' grateful smiles fading into shadows of anger sparked by the preacher's manipulation. Yet here she was now, riding with warriors who recognized not just her skills, but also acknowledged her humanity and purpose. Eliza began to envision what this new identity could mean for her life moving forward, how she could become an ally to Wasake and his people while educating those at home about understanding and kindness built upon shared experiences, rather than harsh judgments cast from shadows deepened by ignorance. A bond formed between them expanded into something beautiful, waiting patiently beneath strong roots, intertwined across cultural lines, stretched wide apart, yet longing to connect once more across spaces defined only by fear, too long allowed to unfurl against tomorrows, brighter overhead, poised overhead, beckoned softly onward toward future possibilities lined with hope transformed anew. As they rode further from town, Wasake glanced over at Eliza, noticing a newfound confidence dawning on her face. He understood that this journey would not just alter their fates, but could reshape perceptions within their respective worlds. A chance for healing beyond personal realms, crossing borders established out of necessity, driven solely through love instead. "Remember," he said gently, "you are more than what others have called you." "Yes," Eliza replied firmly, feeling emboldened by every word exchanged between allies growing ever closer, linked beneath expansive skies stretching gently, receding behind them, leaving legacies waiting quietly for renewal, emerging within places long hidden, lost momentarily beneath fraying threads, woven tightly around futures deftly intertwined, one heartbeat after another, pulsing, firmly alive, flowing freely now toward endless horizons, filled gently muted colors, vibrating joyously, promising renewal, everlasting instead. As they continued their ride toward an uncharted territory, teeming with life, welcoming them back home where understanding might flourish, unrestricted beneath encompassing warmth, Eliza envisioned not just merging paths, weaving theirs together intimately, forever sworn, pledged unbroken promises, made aloud echoing soundlessly across landscapes vast awaiting reflection, reaffirming connections existed far deeper roots bound below, unnoticed in innocuous spaces held steadfast true. And so Eliza rode into a future resplendent with healing potential stretched hand in hand alongside Wasake, instinctively ready awaiting call, knowing victory lay ahead, not simply defined by arguments fought bitterly along winding roads leading ever backward, instead sought all along forward paths illuminated brightly with whispers, tender hopes urging onward toward glowing tomorrows poised alive, beating fiercely bright with promise, radiant forever, youthful renewal, thriving bright dreams, beckoning forth. Brightened days pulsing ebullient together on liberated wings, soaring freely home.